strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it is in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Beth Williams is an investment advisor representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corp., a registered investment advisor. Megan Carney, Megan S. Carney PLLC, and Financial Arc Builders are not affiliated with USA Financial Securities Corp.
Welcome to Money Healing. I'm your co-host, Beth Williams.
And I'm your other co-host, Megan Carney. We're here to talk about money and our feelings related to it. I'm a psychologist who specializes in helping sensitive people.
And I'm a financial planner. We both talk to everyday people just like you about these topics.
Everyone's mental health and money health journeys are so different. And as unique as we all are, there are some common themes when it comes to how our emotions impact our money and vice versa.
And it's those common themes that we are going to be discussing together, both the themes themselves and some ideas from us about how to move forward and heal your relationship with money. In the next bit of episodes, Megan and I will be unpacking the various emotions and trauma themes that we've encountered within our observations over the last few years.
We discovered that people fell into one of two camps, one that knows their numbers and where they are financially, and those that don't know their numbers and where they are financially. We recommend that you go through the episodes and listen to the ones you believe may apply to you.
Megan and I are big advocates for getting collaborative support for both your mental health and your financial health journey. As you listen, we recommend that you pay attention to yourself, your reactions emotionally, and reach out to either a mental health professional and or a financial professional to help you deal with your relationship with money.
We'll begin by discussing I don't know my numbers and blank. Is there something that comes after that? Emotional themes we'll discuss within that will be fear, avoidance, what happens if I lose or fail, shame, guilt, and even domestic violence and abuse, with the overarching theme of trauma.
We will then discuss I know my numbers and blank. Some of the emotional themes that we'll discuss within that will be hopelessness, fear, shame, embarrassment, burnout, never enough, feeling lost, undervalued, worry, and then we'll also deal with the overarching theme of trauma. Welcome back to Money Healing. Today we're going to be talking about I know my numbers, I don't get financial help, and in this episode we're going to be talking about like no one else that I know gets help financially except maybe for taxes. And along those lines, like I feel like I shouldn't need any help.
Those wonderful shoulds.
So I think of this in an analogy that we've used for like 30 years in this office. What has become Financial Arc Builders has been around for 30 years. And this analogy we've used quite often. If I have an attorney, an accountant, an advisor, all driving a car, the accountant by definition is driving by looking in the rearview mirrors because they're accounting for what has already happened. And I'm married to one of these, I understand, but that is by definition, that's what they're doing. So in the car analogy, they're driving by looking in the rearview mirror. And the attorney is going to be looking at the gauges and basically looking at like, are we going too fast? Are we going too slow? Do we have a light bulb out? They're looking at, do we have enough gas? Basically, how do I keep you compliant on the rules of the road? And then the advisor is supposed to be looking out the front window. And, arguably you could bring in the therapist too, which is the therapist is supposed to be asking, why are we in the car in the first place? and where are we trying to go? And so, hence this podcast. But ultimately, I think that part of the reason why people don't get financial help except for taxes is because there's a deadline for taxes. And it comes in the form of a very scary looking letter from a government, that's saying that you owe me a penalty. And so because there's no deadline, I think that when it comes to financial planning or really like looking outside of the window and trying to figure out why am I in the car in the first place, all of those things don't really have a deadline, and there's not a scary letter that comes out. It's really more subtle, I think, the repercussions of not trying to figure all of that out. So
that analogy really made me think, Beth, that it is so hard for so many of us to think that far forward, to imagine the potential positive or negative consequences of having help with managing our money long term or not having help with managing our money long term. So, like, of course, so many people don't get help with it because it's really hard to think that far into the future. Like, no one wants to do it, just like nobody wants to like get their will done or like set up a trust if you have kids or people who might inherit from you. We don't like to think about those things. So no big shock that a lot of us don't think that far down the road financially, and so we're not even considering getting help.
right, and to carry the thought even further, I'm not the mental health expert, of course, but do we actually need a car? Maybe we just want to use a horse to get there, or a bicycle, something like that. I mean, there's lots of different
Or a
modes
boat.
yeah, there's lots of different modes of transportation. So I do think that a lot of that just comes back to that beginning of really what are we trying to do. The concept being with this episode, and what Megan was thinking, was along the lines of like, I feel like I shouldn't need any help, is maybe like the overarching theme is what I'm picking up on. So I mean, yes, those lovely shoulds, but I mean, what do you think we should be doing?
Well, I would ask you to put aside the should and ask what you want to be doing. What would align with your values to do it? Right? Like, maybe you actually don't need help quite yet, but a year from now, you know you're going to need the help. And so you pause, you get a better understanding of your situation for yourself. And then you say, you know what? I don't need to take all of this on anymore. I don't need to. Maybe you're even filing your own taxes, right? Maybe you stayed up late last night and hit submit, and then they rejected something and you're like, I gotta fix it.
She says this as like the tax deadline just passed yesterday. So
And there might have been a situation like that in my house. So I'm just saying. You can say, like, I don't need to do that again. I can ask for help. I understand what our situation is and how this should approximately come out. So if it's wildly off, then I can ask questions. I know what questions to ask because I've done some of this myself. That gets harder, I think, with financial planning. Maybe that's just because of how my brain works. But it's hard to say, like, well, when's the year? When's the time that you need a financial planner, especially when no one around you is using a financial planner? Like, in your experience, Beth, do you have clients who come to you who, like, no one around them is using a financial planner, but they've decided that they need to?
yes, anytime that someone would say like, I don't go to a financial professional, or I don't know anyone that does, I will slightly argue with that, because you probably have someone in your life that you look up to and you go to for financial advice, whether you realize that that's what you're doing or not. There's a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about trying to learn all of these things on their own, and we'll talk about that in another episode here in a bit. But you're going to go to someone for financial advice. It might be your parent asking them questions about how to take out a loan or a mortgage. And like me, when I was 16, I went to my mom. And those are things that I had to get advice on. But so I'd start there with I'm not entirely confident that you don't go to someone. You're probably reading something, you're probably listening to a podcast or something, and that's great and that's wonderful and that's a great place to start.
I was about to push back on you, and then you said you're reading something, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I've Googled a lot of stuff. I don't have a person that I go to. I go to Google or Reddit.
I will get some people who try to take initiative and they're like, listen, no one I know has ever gone to a financial advisor. I don't want to have to repeat the issues that my parents went through or my grandparents went through.
So when people are saying like, I shouldn't need help, nobody else I know is talking to a financial advisor. Like, how do we help them think about, I should talk to somebody? Like, what makes you think, oh, I should get help?
I think that comes down to you and how you individually feel when you sit down and you think about having a conversation around your money. And again, this is why we have this podcast in the first place, is I understand I run into this all of the time with clients where we're sitting here and we're talking about this intimate subject of money and some other emotion is going to come up, guilt, shame, fear, whatever it is. So I would say it starts with you, the individual, sitting down with the idea of money and how does that make me feel, and then start to evaluate, again, I'm not the mental health professional, but start to evaluate what are those feelings that are coming up. Do I feel resistant about talking about this? Why do I feel resistant about talking about this? Do I feel like somebody's going to judge me? And so I think that whether you're doing that guided through a therapist or you're doing this guided yourself, even maybe through this podcast, I think that starting there and sitting with those emotions first, then trying to figure out what are your expectations for that kind of relationship. Again, as Megan mentioned, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you can handle this all on your own right now. Maybe it's not a good fit. I don't know. And I wouldn't try to push it or put any pressure on that relationship, because it does need to be a long-term, relationship between you and the financial professional. But I would start with that. And then from there, if you're running into questions that you can't figure out based off of a Google search or, Reddit kind of concept, then maybe you should just sit down and go to someone that you look up to and ask them what they would do. It could be that that's a financial professional. It could be that it's, your doctor. It could be your therapist. It could be just a friend. But just start to figure out what do you want that relationship to look like first. And that's going to be one of my first questions to you when I start working with someone is what are your expectations from this relationship?
And you started with sitting down with those emotions, noticing what is there. If there's fear of judgment or any feelings that are really, really maybe skewing your views or your thoughts about money, I would argue that right there, noticing that those feelings are skewing your thoughts about money, or perhaps even your decisions about money, and noticing that you might need the practical, look out the windshield advice of a financial advisor, not to change your mind because your feelings are telling you the wrong thing necessarily, but to give you perspective, to say, okay, my feelings are here on this, and my financial advisor, when I finally go see them, is actually showing me, well, things aren't as bad as you think they are, or, well, here's the reality that might take a little bit longer than you were expecting, and it's still doable. and you can adjust your decisions, your timing, all of that stuff based on having more practical, realistic, unbiased information. Our next episode, Beth, is about not getting help largely because of wanting to be in control, right?
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about like I don't trust financial professionals. So yeah, we'll go into that here in just a bit. We'll see you there.